Good evening and very warm welcome to you all, wherever you may be. It's our final show, hence the despondency, the sadness, the sorrow, the pain. But to share it with me, as he does every week, is my man, my co-host, my colleague, Steve Curtin. Steve, good evening and welcome, my friend. It is, it's a bittersweet day, isn't it, kind of thing. It's episode 52. We're excited about tonight's guest. He's going to be an old Geelong boy. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. But, a little bit of sadness, I suppose. It had to happen. And I guess the coronavirus has won out in the end. We're going to call it a day after tonight, hey?
Yeah, well, it looks like it's claimed another victim, and it's unusual to see you sounding despondent. But
are we part of the toll? Are we now part of the death toll? We shouldn't laugh about those things, but geez, they're starting to add everything in that tally. You know, absolutely everything. Apparently, Elvis Presley died 43 years ago yesterday. Now, according to the Department of Health of Victoria, it was due to COVID. It's been rehashed. I'm being silly. But anyway, Steve, how are you, my friend?
Good, thanks, mate. I've made the most of the nice weather today. I'm sorry, I always end up talking about weather at the start of the Geelong show, but we are a region that's very proud of our sunny weather when we get it down here, and it was really nice today, and I got out for a 1 hour ride at lunchtime today.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. Because apparently the weather's going to be crap.
Good. Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be absolutely crap. And, geez, I tell you what, I had to get out of the house because 3 days in a row, yourself, myself, and our esteemed colleague, Craig Filer, have been busy bringing these shows to you folk. First of all, on Saturday night, the big pre-game preview and the post-game review for the A-League. Geez, what a game that was. We'll talk about that exciting in the news desk. Last night, the Hop Heads Football IQ quiz kicked off. We'll talk about that in the news desk. And obviously tonight, the Geelong Region Soccer Show. Good Lord, it's like a full-time job, but we don't get paid for it.
Lucky we get tomorrow night off, I believe. Unless Craig's programmed us for another show tomorrow night.
Oh, no.
Don't know about. Maybe he has.
No.
I'll just check my phone.
Yeah.
No, we're not on air again for 2 days. We'll be back on Wednesday night for the pre-match of Western United versus Melbourne City, the final game of the home and away season up there in the hub in Sydney.
Yeah, it should be fantastic. Should be absolutely. It should be really good. Looking forward to it. Steve, we've got a massive show tonight. Probably not going to be a huge show in the sense that it won't go the usual 90 minutes. We'll be probably playing shortened rules. But we've got a great guest. And our news desk is so chockers with information. We've had to extend it, I reckon. But apart from the news desk, like I said, lots of stuff happening, including some local news, but we'll talk about that later on. Our guest tonight, mate. Tell us about our guest.
Yeah, tonight we're speaking to a young fella who, I think he's still a young fella, who was in the Geelong region for quite a while. Yeah, was in the Geelong region for quite a while. He did co-host a Geelong football program with yourself and some others back in the day, around 15 years ago.
The predecessor to the Geelong Region Soccer Show, which was known as the Geelong Soccer Show, which in fact was actually started by David Davudovic, ex-Herald Sun reporter, whom we had on our program, and that was done at the Pulse 94.7, whatever it's called, something like that.
Correct frequency.
Yeah, and when Dave flew the coop and left Geelong, he passed it into my hands and a couple of others. And James MUIR, Liam Tench, Adrian Begg, Vlado Roxa, I hope I haven't missed anyone out, came on board at varying times. And James, was heavily involved in that show. So he started off at Barwon Soccer Club, I do believe, when he first came to our fair city. And since then has had a very colourful journey that has seen him go interstate as well as overseas because of his football coaching. And he's got a really interesting venture called Treiner. Some of you may have heard about it, but James will tell us all about that. But probably more importantly for local clubs, he's also come out with a blog just recently about how community-based football clubs can not only survive, but actually thrive the COVID pandemic. Just requires a little bit of thinking outside the box. But look, I'm looking forward to picking his brain and discussing that, because I think now is the time to really, really knuckle down and start planning for next year. And this is the ideal time to really do things like strategic planning. We keep on saying this, but now is really the perfect time for it, because you can't do anything else. That'll be really interesting. Really looking forward to that, mate.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah, so it's a good little blog piece there, how clubs can bounce back from COVID-19. The 1920 season so far has been nothing but a massive challenge for every football club across the country, with the bushfires and now COVID-19 impacting every club in some aspect. So that's a little article there posted 3 weeks ago. And the best thing you can do is to be across everything, always learning and collaborating with others to come together and find a fruitful solution to live with and exist in the COVID era next year.
Now, before we get to the news desk, which we will cover, we'll talk about this topic. If you're a club out there and you think that you've got it tough and you think that you're struggling, spare a thought for Barcelona, please. Goodness me. If it's just the empire is falling apart, the tiki-taka era is over, Messi wants out. I think it's something like $1.1 billion is the transfer fee or something like that. Or I just heard something briefly on the news. Is that right?
I haven't heard actually any numbers quoted.
Yeah. Look, if
his contract is due to expire as well within the next, I think it's like 8 or so months. I think so.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Yeah. That could be a bargain. $1.1 billion. Goodness me. Maybe the owner of what is it, Kogan or whatever it's called? He is apparently making a absolute killing online shopping. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Start your own online shopping business, folks. If you're out there in comments land, drop us a comment. Say something about what you've enjoyed or what you haven't enjoyed about our show this year. Did you tune into last night's the football fan zone show? You can do that every Sunday, and at the moment we've got the Hopheads Football IQ quiz coming up. So look, tell us what's going on in your
and Thursdays as well, mate. Too.
And Thursdays as well, and we'll talk about that very, very quickly. And Steve, I'll let you step away from the desk for the moment. He's going to get himself ready for the news desk. It's coming up very, very shortly, so don't go away. It's the final episode of the Geelong Region Soccer Show for 2020.
There you have it. Western United qualifying for the finals in their debut season. It's Monday, the 17th of August, 2020. So the region's A-League club continues to go from strength to strength on Saturday, with Western United knocking off Premier's Plate winners Sydney FC 2-1 at Sydney's Leichhardt Oval. Golden Boot contender Besart Berisha continued his outstanding scoring form, netting in the 21st minute before Adam Lafondra restored parity for the Sydney Siders, heading home on 52 minutes. Then it was Stephen Lustitzer scoring and finishing some fine work from the speedy Dylan Pieris to silence the Cove on 90 minutes. How good was that, Tonchi? How much did you enjoy it?
Oh, fantastic. They are really, really running into form. And look, 3 weeks ago, there, as we see the ladder now, so Sydney FC obviously on top spot, cannot be dislodged. Melbourne City in second spot cannot be lodged. But here's the interesting part. On Wednesday night, should Western United defeat city rivals, Melbourne City, they'll not only leapfrog Brisbane, but they'll leapfrog Wellington into third spot. Now, that's pretty amazing. And look, of course, they won't have the home ground advantage. They won't even have the home state advantage. But the psychological advantage of finishing in third spot. And look, as Mark Rudan has said time and time again over the last few days, last week or so, no one, absolutely no one wants to run into Western United, because they are in scintillating form at the moment. Absolutely scintillating form. And look, mate, Berisha, who's done, just the guy's just gets better and better with age. He's just like a good wine. And a lot of people, and in fact, I'll probably be honest by saying I thought his initial recruitment was, at the time you had Scott McDonald, you had Bessart Berisha. It was a very aging kind of a forward line. I thought, how are these guys going to go? They're not going to really last long. No, he's done absolutely incredibly well, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. There was some concerns on his signing that he was too old, that he'd been at a J-League 2 club and also not playing minutes. But once he found his scoring touch, he's just gone on with it in sensational fashion, so much so that he is challenging for the Golden Boot with Jamie McLaren and Adam Lafondra there.
There we go.
Yeah.
And he's just one goal behind Lafondra and McLaren. Obviously, Lafondra can't increase his tally. McLaren can, and so too can Berisha, but it would be absolutely phenomenal if on the final day, Bessart Berisha gets up and is able to literally steal the Golden Boot award from the other two. But absolutely fantastic. And I think the other statistic is he's moved into, is it third spot after the weekend? He's moved into third spot of the all-time scorers. So he's overtaken John Cosmine, and
for Australian domestic football, yeah.
Yeah, Australian domestic football. I think Rod Brown, the old gingerhead striker who used to play for Apia Leichhardt, and Damien Murray as well, who played at about 15 different NSL clubs, and then he joined Perth Glory as well. So he's like 240, 50 goals, like way ahead of anyone.
There's no catching Murray, but he could catch Brown.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So that's absolutely incredible. But it's like it's not just, we've talked about it, we analysed it, Steve. It wasn't just like Berisha. He's not a one-man band by any stretch of the imagination, nor is Diamanti, although they've been absolutely fantastic. But a lot of the younger kids as well are doing exceptionally well. And for me personally, I thought it was great to see Lustica score that goal in the 90th minute against Sydney FC. And being an ex-Western Sydney Wanderer player, did you notice his little post-goal celebration in front of the Cove? That was a fantastic. I think his legendary status has just gone.
It was excellent. He deserved that goal, and we have dubbed him on the preview show for those Western United games the Iniesta of Western United. So he got a well-deserved goal in that one. And there was a photo going around with him celebrating the goal with Ryan Grant right next to him, and it looked like it was a digitally edited photo, but it was just the contrasting emotions. Two guys side by side, absolutely fantastic.
And speaking of Ryan Grant, fair income. Look, Movember's coming up very shortly. We're going to be raising money and watching off. Can we all get a collection happening so that Ryan Grant can get a decent haircut? Fair income. That is just awful. That is Bogan United personified.
Yeah, certainly it's the full monster truck driver, that one, when he asked for that haircut.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, now let's move along to the Europa League now, and to Germany now, where Spanish club Sevilla are once again showing their pedigree in the Europa League, knocking out Manchester United this morning 2-1 in the semi-final. Goals for Los Palangas from Suso and substitute Luke de Jong either side of halftime were enough to overcome United, who had opened the scoring from the spot, with Bruno Fernandes scoring a trademark penalty in the 9th minute. Sevilla will now face the winner of tomorrow's clash between Inter Milan and Shakhtar Donetsk in the final, which will be at 5 a.m. on Saturday, Australian Eastern Standard Time, at Cologne's Rhine Energy Stadium.
Yeah, well, tomorrow morning's game, Inter Milan versus Shakhtar, the Italian Giants versus the Ukrainians. Who do you think will win that one? Tough one.
The smart money would be on Inter with their quality, but I'm not sure. Maybe Shakhtar can find an extra fan in Craig Fowler, because I just heard earlier today on a podcast that Donetsk was actually founded by a Welshman.
Oh, well, there you go. Jeez.
Look that one up on Wikipedia for some further information, but that's a fact, yeah.
Good Lord, the Welsh get around, don't they? They're everywhere.
They do.
Absolutely everywhere. Turning our attention now to the Champions League.
Yes, the final four of the Champions League have been decided with Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Manchester City and Atalanta bundled out at the quarters. RB Leipzig will now face PSG on Wednesday morning at 5 a.m, while Lyon will meet Bayern Munich on Thursday at 5 a.m, with the final of that competition to take place next Monday morning, our time.
Now, I guess this has been one of the benefits of the COVID lockdown, globally speaking, is that you look at the semi-finals. 2 German clubs, 2 Bundesliga clubs, and then you've got 2 French clubs, La Liga clubs. Because of the obviously the Bundesliga was one of the first leagues to get back, or certainly with the first European league, courtesy of Optus. BIN Sports or Bain Sports, we were able to watch that. And for a lot of Australians fans, we don't get a chance to watch the Bundesliga. But man, when you see Bayern Munich smash Barcelona 8-2, Red Bull Leipzig, defeating Atletico Madrid, and they run all the way through to the semi-finals. It's a very, very underrated league, isn't it? The Bundesliga.
Yeah, it's a good league, and it's a very fast league. If Bayern Munich are anything to go by, the way that they played against Barcelona, and from a French angle as well, it seems 2 French clubs getting through. It's the leagues where they have had a bit of a break leading into this competition, where they have had some advantage, it would seem, based on the qualifiers of these semis. Yeah,
it's interesting, and I'm sure the football analysts, the European football analysts, will probably have their opinion on it. But incredible, isn't it? It's just look, the French league is always highly rated. I mean, as is the Bundesliga. Let's not shy away from it. But no EPL clubs, no Serie A clubs, and indeed no Spanish La Liga clubs. Pretty amazing sort of a statistic. But having said that, you did have all those teams or all those countries factored in the quarterfinals. Atalanta from Italy, Man City obviously from the EPL, and then you had Atletico Madrid and Barcelona from Spain. So they were represented right up until the quarterfinals, I suppose.
Correct. Right. Okay.
We're moving along.
Let's talk about news that came in today from the AAFC.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah. What happened there?
Well, it's a juicy one, I think. The Australian Association of Football Clubs, the AAFC, have today written to members to inform of a meeting to take place on Tuesday, August 25th, to discuss the criteria for a national second division. A public statement is to be issued after the meeting. The AAFC indicate that they are forging ahead with a view to commencing a national second division in 2022, which is very, very exciting. So that AAFC, it has board members in each state member federation. In Victoria, we're represented by Dean Hennessy and Nick Galatzas, who is the chairman.
There you go. Interesting stuff, and I really applaud that. I do. I think what I wanted to say about that is that we talk about behind the scenes. Now is the time to start the planning. Now is the time to start really getting the ball rolling. And look, Dave's saying, we are forging ahead with a view to commencing a national second division in 2022. So 2 years or 18 months at least of planning, of obviously there's a lot that is going to work against it. No doubt the tough, almost impossible economic times we find ourselves in. But if we don't start planning now, we're not going to get anywhere. That's for sure. So absolutely brilliant. Well done on the AAFC for doing that.
Yeah, definitely, and keep those wheels turning, keep the momentum going, keep the good work going there. Now we're going to go on to a sadder note now, closer to home, where the Geelong football community is today mourning the passing of a genuine nice guy of the game in the region, Mr. Martin Groher. Groher was a loyal servant of the North Geelong Warriors, and we pass on our condolences and sympathies to Martin's family. And you can see that article there on the screen now.
And yeah, definitely someone who was heavily involved in the football community back in the 60s, 70s, the 80s, and even the 90s when I was involved down at North Geelong. He was almost like one of the one of the many friendly older or members of the older generation. He was always there to give the young blokes a hand. His English was absolutely fantastic. So he was someone that was well respected wherever he went. So it's a sad bit of news. Unfortunately, that seems to be the order of the day these days. We find ourselves in tough times, in lockdown, and you don't get to hear much about these sort of stories until it's Roy Hayes' wonderful article in today's Geelong Advertiser, it finishes it off by saying Martin Groha was happiest in the background, but he was one of the people who will be remembered among those who built the game in Geelong. So rest in peace to Martin Groher, and to his family, deepest condolences.
Okay, now, next item, we have a message of thanks and hope from Surf Coast president and friend of the show, Steve Christou, who's been spending the last 6 weeks recovering from sustaining injuries from a serious accident. While Steve has a long road ahead, he's paid tribute to all who've sent him kind messages of support, and his wife, Paula, Jay, and Louise, family, friends, and the Surf Coast committee who've stepped up in these trying times. And you can find that message on the screen there now, or on our Facebook page, or reposted from Surf Coast FC's Facebook page there.
Yeah, great to see. Steve's back on the mend, and hopefully all goes well there. And pass on our regards to him and the Surf Coast Football Club. It's it was going to be a huge year for Surf Coast, and a massive year for not just Surf Coast, but for most clubs here in Geelong. And unfortunately, it has all happened. It has gone a little bit pear-shaped in Steve's case, and in Surf Coast's case, that has been emphasised that little bit more. Steve, what's next?
Yeah, so wishing Steve Christou all the best as that recovery continues. Now, the opening tie in the round of 16 of the Hopheads Football IQ quiz took place last night, with Sebastopol Vikings, represented by Michael Besija, getting over the line with a 6-3 win against State League 3 rivals Williamstown, who were represented by the gallant Vlad Babic. This Thursday night, it's the Geelong Region's turn to enter the fray, with North Geelong Warriors meeting Hoppers Crossing in a mouth-watering Match Day 2 tie as the round of 16 continues, Tonchi.
Yeah, so as we can see, Thursday night, all roads lead to the Football Out West show, which will be simulcast on our station or on our channel here on the Geelong Region Soccer News Facebook page. So do make sure to tune in for that one. North Geelong Warriors to be represented by Anthony Barnavats. He'll be swapping his boots for his books. And Hoppers Crossing is supposed to be represented by Kevin Smart, an icon of the club, whose wife, Jessie, is the current president down there. But there was talk that, in fact, we've got breaking news. Hoppers Crossing is, in fact, going to be represented by Dane Garbett. And thanks to Craig Filer, our colleague. He's just let us in on the groundbreaking news that it is. So substitution has happened before we've even started with Hoppers Crossing. Kevin Smart has been substituted by Dane Garbett. So that should be awesome. Now Hoppers Crossing, the club of one of our biggest fans, the Ray man, Brenton Ray. He'll be eager to see Dane do well, and Anthony Barnavats. Anthony actually featured in one of our most popular shows or episodes of the Geelong Region Soccer Show earlier in the year with Joey Diddley. So it was one of our most popular ones on YouTube and indeed on Facebook as well. So he's going to be riding on the crest of the popularity, and all the Warriors fans no doubt will be wishing him all the very, very best. Now, match day 3 on Sunday could be a problem, Steve, because St Albans Saints take on Meadow Park. However, we're not really sure what could happen if Western United end up being scheduled to play their elimination final on Sunday night. We're hoping, fingers crossed, that game will be on a Saturday night, but at the moment. I'm sure that's all going to be worked out after Wednesday night's final round clash with Melbourne City, mate.
Absolutely, mate. The late news just keeps breaking here, doesn't it? With late replacements in the trivia teams and, even potentially a rescheduling. But at the moment, that fixture still stands at 7 p.m. on Sunday evening, St Albans Saints versus Meadow Park, the NPL 1 side versus the State League 5 side.
Yeah, and then the match day 4, Thursday, the 27th of August, Collingwood City taking on Brimbank Stallions. Collingwood City, not a team from the West or from Geelong, but the entries were open to anyone that wanted to enter, and Collingwood City were very quick off the mark. So it's great to have a northern or inner city club from the north coming into the frame. They'll be taking on the Brimbank Stallions, so that should be really good. Now, if they're the dates for the first 4 match days, but we'll go into the fixtures. The remaining fixtures, match day 5, we'll see Geelong's own Barwon Soccer Club coming up against George Cross. That should be absolutely fun to see. And then we've got an all-Croatian derby. That's going to be a big grudge match, Steve.
Yeah, the Knights and the Bears going head-to-head there. The sparks are already flying, I think, behind the scenes between the 2 competitors in that one. So that's very exciting. That's followed up by another NPL side, Altona Magic, taking on their local rivals, Yarraville Glory. And then in the final fixture in the round of 16, we have another local club from the Geelong region. It's our very own Corio Soccer Club taking on Sunbury United to round out the round of 16.
Yeah, and with the Melbourne Knights, it must be said that there will be a local flavour. Representing the Melbourne Knights is their current under-18 coach, but someone also well known to North Geelong fans. He did don the famous red shirt of the Warriors for several seasons in Tommy Gavran. So he'll be representing the Melbourne Knights. So, should be absolutely fantastic. And we'll just quickly go recap last night's result. There we go. Sebastopol Vikings 6, which was represented by Michael Bercia. The Ballarat club outclassing Williamstown Soccer Club 3, which was represented by Vlad Babic. So Sebastopol Vikings advanced through to the quarterfinals in the Hopheads Football IQ quiz. So Michael receives a $50 voucher from our sponsors, Hopheads, and Anthony Banavats will be aiming to do the same when he comes up on Thursday against what was his name? Dane Garbett again from Hoppers Crossing. So should be fantastic.
I can see Brenton Ray getting in the comments already, putting his support behind Dane. So looking forward to Thursday night already. Now, more news just at hand. Geelong Rangers have taken 3rd place in the most memorable photo competition, and I don't know a lot about this competition, but I believe we have some content there to explain it, and perhaps the Geelong Rangers Facebook page will be the place to go to find out more.
Yeah, Sports Community, they are a fantastic organisation, a little bit similar to what Leisure Networks does down here in Geelong, but they provide a lot of literature, a lot of webinars, a lot of material to help community-based clubs, not just football clubs, but AFL, netball, you name it, basketball, how best to run it. So if you do are on Facebook, obviously you would be if you're watching us, do click on the Sports Community page, but also go onto their website. And if you are involved with with your local club, they've got some absolutely fantastic resources. But yeah, this was the most memorable sports club photo competition, and it was subject to popular vote. And as we can see, the first and the second clubs are some non-significant clubs. I don't even know who they are. But
the Bendigo umpires.
Yeah, big deal. But the third club, our very own Geelong Rangers Soccer Club. So congratulations to the Dark Blues, to Lisa, Kylie, Mike, and everyone up there at MUIR's Reserve. Well done. And I'm not too sure what they actually win. But whatever it is, it's certainly good recognition and well done to the Rangers.
That's it, mate. And just finally tonight, we'll just go over the active COVID cases for the region, with the City of Greater Geelong on 155, down by 3 today. Surf Coast Shire on 5 with no change. Golden Plains Shire on 4, which is down by 3. Colac Otway on 42, down by 6. the Queenscliff, the Borough, no cases, and our region's nearest metro neighbours, Wyndham, they are down by 24 cases today. So hopefully those numbers keep going down, and we can start to restore some normality in the coming months.
Yeah, the sooner the better. The sooner the better. Okay, we're now going to bring our next guest on. We're going to go straight into this. We're not even going to have a break. Well, there's no need to have a break, is there? Let's just get straight into it. This is a man who, well, he needs no introduction if you're down from Geelong, because we've already given him an introduction. But it's an absolute pleasure to welcome James MUIR to the show. James, thank you for joining us here on the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It's episode 52 and the last one for 2020. But mate, you know, there's a lot that's happened to you since you left Geelong, and probably the most important is you become a dad again recently.
Yeah, thanks, Tonchi. Yeah, definitely put a bit on weight on as well since.
A camera puts on 10 kilos. Don't worry.
That's right. Yeah, I apologise for my hairstyle. I think I'm going just as bad as Ryan Grant. I should have gone with a cap like you, Tonchi.
Yeah, that's the trick.
But yeah, we're in stage 4 up here in Melbourne, so it's a bit difficult getting a haircut. But you know, it's good to be on the show again after such a long time, and good to see you still involved as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, mate. First of all, speaking about the past, let's talk about how you got involved in football, and you know, originally when you came from Scotland, how did you end up in Geelong? Tell us. Let's go all the way back. Let's go for a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so obviously I was born in Australia and moved back over to Europe when I was pretty young, and spent most of my time in Malta, and that's how I guess I kind of grew my love for the game. And then I moved to boarding school over in England and played a little bit there whilst I was at boarding school, and then moved up to Scotland and went to uni there, and just when I saw the A-League starting to happen in early 2004, I thought, you know, it was a really good opportunity to come back prior to the start of the A-League, and I had a little bit of a football business that I wanted to get up and running at that stage, and that was more of around, you know, sports products, and so that kind of led me to come back to Australia. My cousins and my auntie lived in Geelong, so I thought that would be probably a good place to start, and then I'll go from there. But I guess just being exposed to the game, you know, I really wanted to get more involved in the local game in Australia, and have to thank Dave Ray from Barwon, who was one of the first guys that I reached out to, and he used to pick me up from where I lived in Highton and drive me down to training. I think it was a week after I'd arrived from Scotland. And just I guess through that experience, I started coaching as well at Barwon Soccer Club, and I guess grew my love for coaching, and so much that I didn't really want to continue playing at you know, at a reasonable level as much as I, you know, enjoyed coaching. So I guess it kind of started from there, and yeah, and that's, I guess, has been the start to, you know, to lead me to where I am today, I guess.
When you first dabbled with coaching down at Barwon Soccer Club, did you know right from the outset that was something that you wanted to make a career out of, or is it something that happened sort of just gradually as time progressed?
Yeah, I guess you know, I wanted to be involved in the game somehow, and whether that was through coaching, and I guess just at the time, you know, I really enjoyed coaching, and I felt you know, in my teens, especially when I was at boarding school, you know, I didn't have the support of my family to be able to drop me off to training. You know, I had to cycle to training in Morecambe, which was, you know, it was half an hour, 45 minutes in pretty. You know, if we think Melbourne weather's pretty bad, then you should go over to the north of England. You know, coming from Australia and Malta, it's definitely a big shock. So, yeah, so I guess that experience where, you know, I felt if I would have had the right coach, I think at the right time, then potentially, you know, I could have played at a slightly higher level. But, you know, that's all hindsight, I guess. Yeah. But from that experience, then, you know, I wanted to get involved into coaching, and I think, you know, being exposed to a few different styles of play in Europe, you know, even at the lower levels in England and Scotland, it's but I think in Malta was, you know, was a really good style of play, and that I was exposed to over there with Luxor Andrews, and you know, I really enjoyed that, and I felt that could have an impact on my coaching as well, and that kind of drove me towards just to have a look and see how that would go. And I guess I went full in to see where it would end up.
Okay, James, I think I remember you back at Barwon when I had a season there in about 2006. Since that time at Barwon, where has coaching taken you outside of Geelong since that time?
Yeah, so I guess I was involved with a few different clubs in Geelong, Barwon and Geelong Rangers. I think Keith Wise, who was the zone development officer before Foddy, he actually posted a picture back, I think from 2005 or 2006 of when I was involved in the intellectual disability program there at Geelong Rangers, which that's kind of expanded to Barwon as well and a few other clubs, which is really good to see.
Sorry, just to cut you off. Where was that again? Hasn't Foddy been zone development officer since 1926?
No, it was actually Keith Wise was involved before him. So yeah, that was it shows you how long I guess I've been involved in.
Whatever happened to Keith? Did he move on or?
Yeah, so I think he's involved in the game in northern New South Wales from memory. So yeah, so I guess I've been involved in a few different clubs. Geelong, great. Still keep in touch with a lot of the guys at Geelong and North Geelong as well. Had really good experiences at both those clubs as well. And I guess after being involved with for a few years and also at the state level, both in futsal and in outdoor. I wanted to progress further and did a lot of my coaching courses, but I felt that there wasn't really that many opportunities, especially being so young. Whereas over in Europe, they have a lot of young coaches out from uni and that have some playing experience, that they're involved in a lot of the professional clubs, but there wasn't really that structure at the time in Geelong or even in Melbourne. So I was looking for some opportunities either across the country or overseas, and I came upon an opportunity over in Fiji to go and work over there as a development officer. It wasn't for great pay, but for me it was just about the experience. So I went over there in 2008 and worked my way up to being the assistant technical director there.
Let's talk about that. So that was for the actual Fijian FA, or their version of the Football Association, was it?
Yeah, Fiji FA. Yeah, so I was there from 2008 to 2011.
And how did you find it culturally? And I guess because football over there, it's actually quite big, isn't it? But it's not as big as rugby, is it?
No, so it is the second sport. Well, third sport if you put rugby sevens. Rugby sevens is kind of the number one sport. They're the best in the world in rugby sevens, and then rugby 15s is kind of the second sport. And then football comes third. But in terms of the salaries and the money involved, and also a lot of the supporters, football pretty much is number one. At least in terms of the local games. In terms of people watching on TV, then rugby sevens is still number one. When Fiji wins the Hong Kong sevens or something like that, then they have pretty much a national holiday. Don't expect anyone to come into work. But yeah, the culture is really strong because they've been involved in the game for so long, and so from that aspect, it's quite hard to bring in an outside footballing philosophy to try and change that. And there's been a lot of Australian coaches, guys like Frank Treiner and Claudio Canosa and a lot of guys, Tony Busnell, a lot of guys before I was there and after there, and they've not really had that much success, really because they tried to implement things from the Australian way or the Australian way of playing, and even though I wasn't involved with the senior team as much, I was involved a little bit in terms of the camps and stuff, but predominantly I was involved with most of the junior sides and the futsal team and the women's side and the beach soccer side as well. So yeah, I think that the culture is probably the biggest thing that I picked up. But, you can't go in and try and change culture, and I think that's something that Australian football hasn't really looked at. They've tried to really whitewash the ethnic cultures of the game within Australia in terms of their coaching styles, even in terms of the coaching methodology with the national federation and the state federations. It's predominantly focused on people that have either been brought up in Australia or they understand English to a high level. The amount of amount of methodology and teaching methodology that's actually within the curriculum is kind of focused on that. So if you're a recent migrant to Australia, to understand a lot of the content, especially in the advanced courses, you're really going to struggle. And that's what I noticed over in Fiji. They're quite strong with with their culture, and they're not really keen to change. Obviously, within that, there's some negative aspects of their culture in terms of their football culture. That it's not really as professional as it could be, and the fans have huge expectations of qualifying for the World Cup and doing well when they do get to the Olympics, or which they managed to do finally a few years ago.
What about facilities? Like, what's the standard of facilities, or what's the standard of facilities that you worked at like? And look, have you got sort of rough idea as to how many players they have, or is there a national league that they've got, or how many professional clubs, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so the National League over there was divided by the districts, so it changes on a pretty regular basis, but each district is pretty much each area of the country has a team that represents the district, and there's quite a important thing to represent your district in football or in rugby or on whatever sport that you choose. So there's around 30,000 registered players in Fiji, and the population's 800,000. So it's quite a large percentage of the population. And they have the National League and a second division, and they also have some smaller divisions as well within that. So and they've got these huge tournaments. They often have these 4 or 5 tournaments throughout the year. So the Battle of Giants and tournaments like that. And they used to bring in a lot of players from Sydney, and occasionally players from Melbourne as well. So they'd come over for 4 or 5 days over a long weekend or over Easter, and these guys would be on $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 payments to with flights and accommodation on top of that. Really good players who play for Marconi, a few that play for the Knights, and a lot that play for Sydney Olympic and a few of the other old NSL clubs.
Gee.
James, do you feel that the players over in Fiji, places like this, benefit from more unstructured play and coaching and freedom in their training conduct? And also, just personally, how'd you go with the heat over there?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Malta, the heat's there, and I remember some years it never rained. So the heat is fine, although in Bar, where the FIFA Goal Project is and where the national team was based, so I was based out of there for a year, that was really hot. I went through about 5 or 6 sunglasses. The sunglasses would just melt. It was that hot. So I mean, yeah, it does get pretty hot. We'd train at 6 in the morning, and then we'd train at 11. And then we'd train again at 4 o'clock, and you just sleep in between, and except for your lunch, it was that hot, and all the players, we'd just go back to the dorms and just pass out from the heat.
And what about when it rains? Because when it rains there, it really rains, right?
Yeah, so they have a monsoon season over there from November through to February, there was several cyclones. I was at the football academy one year when the cyclone hit and the goals moved across the pitch, and we were in camp with the under-17 national team preparing for World Cup qualifiers, and one of the players left the door open, and the door just swung off, smashed, and started flying in the air. Had coconut trees flying down on the ground, and I had to go and pick up the technical director because he was at his house, and that was flooding. So yeah, it's been a great experience, I guess. Going over there, you see a lot of things that you don't get exposed to when you're in Australia.
Yeah, and coming back to Australia, you then moved to Northern New South Wales, was it? What was the next phase in your life before then you came back to Victoria?
Yeah, so I moved to so after a few years, I guess being involved there, I was keen to progress my career, and really wanted to take a team to the World Cup qualifiers. And the problem was that with overseas coaches, they often felt that if they appointed one and they struggled and they lost results, then they'd have to fire the coach pretty quickly because of the public pressure, and they didn't want to fire me. But so after a few times of being put in charge of a team, and then at the last minute being put as an assistant, or as the team manager, and then getting asked to take a new team on board and prepare for a new World Cup qualifying cycle, then I thought it was time to move on. And Football New South Wales had a great role down in southern New South Wales as a coaching development manager. So I took that job on in 2011 and moved down to Nowra in the South Coast. So I looked after the region from Gerringong down to Eden, the border with Victoria, and then around Canberra and up to pretty much where Macarthur is now. So it was a pretty large area. I looked after around 7,500 players in that region and around 52 clubs.
Insane.
And was it challenging coming back to that environment after being in Fiji, or was it like a bit of a walk in the park, or how did you find it all?
Yeah, I guess it's different. They had really great facilities at Football New South Wales in the Southern Branch region. So we had a full-time general manager there who was great. We had 8 pitches just outside the office to train from. So we were the hub for all the best players in the region. So guys like Jake True, who's at Western Sydney Wanderers at the moment, I used to work with him on a weekly basis, and then he'd go back and train with the Wolves where he's been at since a 13-year-old. So it was a really great region. You got to work with a lot of high-level players and also get exposed to players in Wollongong as well. So we had a close connection with the Wollongong Wolves as well.
Sorry, Steve, go.
So do you think it's disappointing that the region's underrepresented? There's no A-League team out of Canberra or Wollongong, or is that fair enough at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely a lot of talent, especially in the Wollongong region. And looking to see how Luke Wiltshire, what he did with the Wollongong Wolves last year, that was fantastic. I think there's a lot of really good. And in that side, there was 3 players from Nowra and from the region. So there's definitely, a large catchment area for the Wollongong Wolves in terms of players. Fans, I think there is a passionate fan group. I just think there's not as much, financial backing for the Wollongong Wolves that maybe some other A-League clubs have. But, I guess at the moment, not many A-League clubs would have great financial backing either. We've seen obviously with Central Coast Mariners and even with Newcastle Jets. I wouldn't say they're in that much of a better position than the Wollongong Wolves would be for sure.
And how did you end up in Victoria then after that? It was decided to come back to the home state, but you ended up in Gippsland. How did that all eventuate?
Yeah, so when I was over in Fiji, I ended up getting married. I met my wife over there, who's a doctor, and we moved down to Victoria so she could practice down here. And I worked as technical director at Box Hill United for a few years, and then at Northcote City for a season as well. And she had to do a regional attachment, and not being a fan of the cold, I said, well, as long as it's somewhere nice and near to the water. So we decided upon Raymond Island and moved out to East Gippsland, which is a lovely part of the country. Not really great in terms of football wise. So I'd travel down to Morwell to take the Gippsland TIDC training on a weekly basis, and keep my foot in the water in terms of coaching, and started on my A license, part 1 of my A license as well around that same time.
And then in the current phase now, you've moved on to business opportunities such as this Treiner program, which you're the co-founder of. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so that came about, I guess, a few reasons. Coming after being involved with with national and state sporting organisations for a few years, and then coming back down to Victoria and working with national Premier League clubs, I just didn't think there was the support from an admin perspective that clubs had in New South Wales. So in New South Wales, each of the clubs will generally have a general manager plus a few coordinators, and there's a lot of support admin-wise. Whereas in New South Wales, it's predominantly in Victoria, it's predominantly just a technical director, and I felt the clubs could really get more support admin-wise, which would also alleviate a lot of the pressures on the technical directors, on the coaches at the clubs. If you have a really good administration and support background, then a lot of the problems that you're going to have with parents and with sponsors or whatever it is will be able to go away. And we started a sports consultancy out of that, Dynamic Sports Solutions, and then through working with a lot of those clubs, especially at the grassroots level, but also a few NPL clubs as well. The biggest problem that they found was they just didn't have a large network of coaches, and I've seen this even at the A-League level. It's the same coaches that their names get thrown around in terms of filling the coaching positions, and at NPL level and at a grassroots level, it's very similar. Rely on the board, who the board knows in terms of coaches, and there's not a system where you can jump on and compare some different coaches based on their qualifications and where they want to coach, how they coach, and that type of thing. So we really wanted to develop a bit of a platform to enable clubs and parents and schools to just jump on, compare different coaches, hire coaches from one-off sessions through to season-long training programs, but also on the coaches side as well to provide a bit more support. I'm sure you guys would have seen Football Coaches Australia report last year that 70% of coaches in Australia working without really a valid contract. I know even myself, at some of the NPL clubs, I was in a full-time role, but I wasn't paid super for the first, over a year. Sometimes I was working, wasn't paid for 3-4 months at a time. And after having worked for federations, even in Fiji, we get paid weekly. Our pay was never late. So you're going from a developing country back to, what should be a developed country, and as a coach, you're not getting paid properly. And talking to a lot of other coaches, they felt very similar. They had similar issues. We've seen ex-NSL clubs have issues over the last few years with not paying coaches and other staff, and I think that's a huge. Even some A-League clubs, they haven't paid coaches well, and I guess that led to the formation of Football Coaches Association. But that should have been done years ago, and an FFA and all the state federations haven't really looked at the working environment of coaches. There hasn't been an equivalent of the PFA for coaches. I guess now the FCA kind of is that, but there's nothing that's really looking at the pathway of coaches from when you're a young grassroots coach and you're volunteering through to guys that are maybe doing 2 or 3 teams. They're coaching at Geelong Grammar or Geelong College or whatever it is, and then they're maybe doing a rep team, and so they want to go a little bit further in their career and want to see what happens, compared to obviously the guys in the National Premier League One, and they're pretty much full time in terms of the time that they invest into the game. So we really want to do something for those coaches, and that's how it kind of evolved from there.
I guess over the last few years, James, particularly since you've left Geelong and then come back to Victoria in that 3 or 4, 5 year time span, or whatever the case may be, maybe even longer, a lot has changed. And I guess there's a lot of critics of the NPL, particularly at junior level, and they say it costs ridiculously and the cost of this and that. But I guess one of the things that has been positive is that it has now started to produce an economy where coaches are paid, technical directors are employed, maybe not yet at that level where they can now live off that or where they can be full-time. But, a lot of the coaches now are no longer volunteers, at least at these clubs. In your opinion, is that a good direction? That are the clubs sustainable? Are they able to pay these coaches? And from a coach's point of view, as you mentioned, if a coach is dabbling in this and that and maybe a rep team, they could probably make maybe not a great living, but a decent enough living. Is that the way to increase our quality of coaching, to offer a platform or offer an environment where we are able to actually engage professional full-time coaches?
Yeah, I definitely think, that's, if you've got more coaches that spend more time actually coaching on the pitch, then obviously over time they're going to improve. They're going to have some financial support to be able to pay for the next coaching course that they need to do. They're going to be able to pay to upskill their coaching qualifications and also go on other professional development courses. And that's how you're going to, grow the game through coaches to be able to, focus solely on coaching. If you're and it's similar to players back in the day in the NSL. If you're doing the bricks the whole day, like my brother, and then if you go and try and train after that, you're pretty tired. It's the same, and I found it the second year that I was at Box Hill, I started teaching full time at TAFE in sport and rec, teaching the diploma there, and I found I was finishing at TAFE at 4, and then going to training at 4:30, and then I'd finish at 10 o'clock. I was pretty tired by by the end of the week, even though I was still reasonably young. That was a few years ago. So, but now with 2 kids, it's a little bit more tiring. So I guess that's, if you can focus fully on coaching, then you can put your best effort into that. The quality of your sessions is going to be a lot higher, and therefore that's going to have a reflection in terms of what the players experience. And if the players experience better sessions, they'll stay involved in the game a lot longer. I'm not saying it's going to create, Maradonas out of full-time coaches, but I'd say you're going to have more players involved in the game for a longer period of time, and there's a significant number of those that are then going to be able to move on to the next level.
James, you mentioned professional development there. Are you juggling any courses or anything at the moment with the parenting? And is there enough opportunities out there for coaches to do professional development at the moment in this COVID era?
Yeah, so through our startup, we've been involved in a few sports tech accelerators. So we're currently going through a few of those, and we're about to get ready to raise some funds for investment. So so we're going through a few of those courses at the moment for that. There's quite a lot of learning. We went through some over the last few years, and that's kind of how we've evolved the business as a result of kind of those learnings, and moving more into a tech business rather than just a coaching business.
Fantastic. Now let's talk about a blog, a recent blog that you just wrote, and it was on the website there. So we'll put it up there. And it's an interesting one because it does talk about the current situations and how clubs can bounce back from COVID-19. And it basically, this the opening paragraph there is, or sub-paragraph, the 2019-2020 season so far has been nothing but a massive challenge for every football club across the country, with the bushfires and now COVID-19 impacting every club in some aspect. How can clubs deal with the 2020 year that has been, and all the financial implications and the trials and tribulations? Tell us a little bit about that blog that you wrote.
Yeah, I guess there's a number of things that they can do. I think they need to, and it depends, I guess, which level that you're operating at. If you're grassroots, if you're semi-professional, or if you're a professional club, but utilizing your user base a lot more and keeping them highly engaged. I guess a lot of clubs and federations in Australia have kind of looked at it only from really 2 perspectives. Either you're a grassroots club and you're volunteer led and you're focused on not burning out the volunteers, versus a lot of the federations that are trying to use a business focused, highly capitalized Western style of funding and operation. And I think you need to have a combination of the two. You need to look at your resources in terms of your user base, both the players and the parents, the coaches, the volunteers involved, and see how you can kind of maximize the opportunities that you have with them. So whether that's with sponsors or with connections within the game. I think traditionally most clubs have relied on sponsors just for money, and there hasn't been much return for those actual sponsors. So in a situation like this year, where every business has been impacted by, whether it's by the bushfires or whether it's by COVID, then you really need to think of, well, if they're providing money, what are they getting in return? And just putting the sponsor's name on the shirt or a signboard on the pitch isn't enough anymore. You need to provide a much more tracked return on investment that you can actually show the sponsor and say, well, this is how much money you gave, and this is we've tracked this, that we brought this many people to your business, either through digital campaign or through physical engagements that you're doing at the club. So there's a combination of those things, and then I guess trying to work outside the traditional sponsor base that clubs traditionally have. The trades and businesses that traditionally have been involved, and trying to connect with potentially other football businesses that may be able to provide more of a return to the actual football ecosystem. So whether that's football product businesses or football coaching businesses, or any type of business that's going to add extra value onto your club and to the existing program that you have. And I think most clubs and most federations have been pretty conservative in this regard. They haven't tried to look outside the box. And I guess now with COVID, and we saw James Johnston, I guess, saying it recently that they're going to have to look outside the box in terms of being able to get extra funds into the game, because there's not the same amount that they've had over the last few years.
James, just back to the Treiner website, I see you can look up the coaches in your city. Like, for instance, there's a whopping 29 coaches available in Melbourne, 18 in Sydney, 5 in Brisbane, 2 on the Gold Coast, 1 in Wollongong, Launceston and Hamilton. What can coaches do if they wanted to get advertised on this website?
Yeah, if coaches want to join, they just need to jump online. As long as they've got a worker and children check and ABN, they can just fill in their credentials, and then we approve them if they've after checking all their all the qualifications and doing all the worker and children check, etc. Over the last few years, so we've grown from 30 when we initially launched in 2017 to around 3,000 last year. But on our previous version of our website last year, we found some of the coaches were there offering for a year, and they hadn't really. We had some ex-A-League players that really didn't fill out their profile properly. They'd just put I played for West Ham and that was it. And so they wouldn't get many bookings. So what we've focused on when we relaunched at the beginning of this year is more of the higher profile coaches who really engage on the platform, respond to messages. And that's why we've focused on a much smaller number to start off with. And then obviously once COVID passes, then we'll start, growing it again. But yeah, definitely there's opportunities for coaches if they do want to get more work over this period. Obviously not in Melbourne at the moment, apart from virtual sessions. But yeah, down in Geelong, obviously you can still do one-on-one sessions down there as well.
Well, absolutely, and that is I guess that is the saving grace for a few football coaches down here. And I noticed that some of them are who do run their own football coaching businesses are doing exactly that. So there are a few doing one-on-one coaching at the moment. Now, in our comments section for we've put a link there to that particular blog. But if you click on that blog, you'll also be able to click on the website itself. And look, it really is fascinating seeing how the whole business is evolving slowly. And for you, it must be really exciting. Obviously, having the vision of what you want it to be, and there's obviously plans afoot to transform it even more. But what would you like to see, look, when we're talking about transformation of football in this country? What are maybe 3 priority things that need to be done to get football in this country to the next level?
Yeah, I think obviously investing in better coaching. Research has shown that poor coaching leads to player churn in Australia, and especially in Victoria, between 7 to 13. So if you can keep players in the game, then that's going to increase revenue, keep revenue in the game. It's going to keep better players playing against other better players and increase the standard over time. And then I think as a result of that, then you should be able to do something more for coaches. I think federations have just been focused on just running courses, and they haven't really looked into the pathway for coaches. They haven't looked into the whole operating of coaches at all since the A-League started, and since FFA took over from Soccer Australia back in 2004, 2005. So I think those 2 things definitely, and then I think unity. And I know James Johnson and a few people at FFA have talked about unifying in the game, but they're predominantly still looking at it from a club perspective, and it's all well and good, obviously, to unify all the clubs, but you've got players that are out with clubs, and also you've got coaches not in the club space as well. So you really need to look at the whole of football plan that they released a few years ago. They had all these aspirations and they didn't really follow up on any of that at all. So I guess putting in a practical plan into place in terms of how to unify the game, and not just the clubs, not just the federations. It needs to be the schools. It needs to be futsal. It needs to be, the private space outside of the game as well, because that's really what's going to move it to the next level.
Very good. Very good. James, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Just one last one from me. What's next for you on your coaching journey, and perhaps what's next for the business?
Yeah, I guess, I'd love to, I'm still involved with the TIDC down in Knox with Football Victoria, and I'm involved as a coach education assessor for a lot of the C licence courses as well. So, I've really enjoyed the coach education side. Keen to obviously finish my part 2 of my A licence now. I've had the second child, and we'll have a bit of a break for a few months, but yeah, keen to finish that off, and then definitely keen to jump back into coaching at the right club. I'm definitely not going to jump back in just to any club. I don't want to be jumping around like some coaches have had to or do. I think it's really important that the club fits your coaching style and your philosophy and what you want to do as a coach. And through the business, we're currently preparing to raise some funds, and we're pushing. We've already signed an MOU with the Professional Football Association over in Malaysia, so we're keen to push over into Southeast Asia as well as New Zealand.
Mate, would a return back to Geelong ever be on the cards?
Yeah, definitely. I'm always keen to jump back down to Geelong. We've got a lot of friends down there, and people always keep in touch with people involved in the game down there. So it's really good to see what Western United are doing and the people involved in Western United from the Geelong region. So yeah, definitely be keen to do that and give something back to the game down in Geelong as well.
Yeah, and to keep the wifey happy, we've got 3 very good hospitals down here in Geelong. So
yeah,
Barwon, or whatever it's called, University High or whatever it's called, I don't know.
University Hospital.
Hospital for those who've been around for a long time. James, on that note, it would be absolutely fantastic for our region to be blessed with your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, and we certainly look forward to Treiner becoming a little bit more prominent down here with the ever-growing football community that we've got down here. But in the meantime, thank you very much for joining us, and stay in touch. We'd love to hear more that happens with Treiner and yourself.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tonchi. Great to hear.
Good on you. That was James MUIR joining us. Absolutely fantastic to have James on the show. Really, really very insightful. I was really fascinated about the chat during his stint in Fiji. I thought that was really interesting, and goodness me, wow, he's such a lucky person. He's had, lived in Malta, then Scotland, in England, Fiji, Australia,
and Geelong as well. So many good places.
Yep, absolutely. Mate, we're nearly at the end of our show. This is almost time. We've had a fantastic time this year. It has been a topsy-turvy type of a year, but, credit to yourself, credit to us, credit to the show, credit to everyone that's tuned in this year, all of the sponsors, all of our members. A big, big shout-out to all of our members. They've been absolutely incredible. Joe Pino, we've had Stuart Mallon, we've had Vladimir Zetovic. Have I missed out on anyone? I think they're all of them. It's been an absolute pleasure to have all of you people tuning in. All the clubs, the businesses, the organisations that supported us this year. We could not have possibly gone anywhere near as deep into the year. And our aim the whole time was, particularly during lockdown 1 and lockdown 2, was to keep your spirits up, to keep the football conversation happening. Look, to be honest, we were the only football medium in this city, and continue to do so. So hopefully, Steve, there are people out there that have appreciated our efforts this year. People like Brenton Ray, Santino Mamone, Vladimir Zetovic, these people week in, week out, they were tuning into the show, and there were other people as well. The loud or the silent minority or whatever that, would pop their comments in sometimes here and there. To all of our guests, to all of the clubs, absolutely thank you so much. And look, just because the Geelong Region Soccer Show won't be around, Steve, we're going to be very, very busy over the next month with the A-League post-game shows and the pre-game wrap-ups, with the Hopheads Football IQ quiz, which is going to be happening twice a week on a Thursday and on a Sunday. And speaking of our A-League pre-game preview on Wednesday, more news at hand. Craig Filer has just sent me a message and saying that Western United CEO Chris Palavanis will once again come on the show, and hopefully in the post-game we will also have another player or a coach or assistant coach from the dressing room. So it has been absolutely fantastic, the calibre of Western United guests we've been having. Really looking forward to that. So folks, don't desert the ship just yet. We'll still be for the next month or so.
Yeah, that's right, mate. We're still putting out a lot of great content, and just to reflect on what a crazy year it's been. We started it all out with the Masters Summer League, and that was just going great guns for so many reasons all around Geelong. Then we had the Geelong Community Cup as a Lightning Premiership format, with the Galaxy winning the women's and Geelong winning the men's, with Daniel Kaczynski scoring goals from everywhere. Barwon's amazing FFA Cup run, getting through, I think, 5 successful ties. Then we had the Galaxy ready to kick off in the new VPLW. We had Corio about to kick off in State League 1 at our very last show at the FNR studio, when we had Ante Didalitza come in to speak to us about the game that was to be round 1 that weekend. We had the NPL 2 and 3 to kick off. But then you've done a tremendous job, mate. You've transitioned us from the studio at Docklands to our own home, our own living rooms and studies, and provided content for people to stay connected to the game. So I have to say, an extremely good job to you on doing that, mate. We've had some great guests as well. We've had David Davutovic on his exit from the Herald Sun. We've had Michael Caine from Channel 10 talking about that great interview with Mark Viduka. We've had ex-Champions League players, Joey Didalitza, getting huge ratings. We've had John Didalitza, the former chairman of the PFA. We've talked about the reforms of the game that we can help the game with at great length. So there's been so many good talking points. That's just to name a few this year off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a lot more that I've missed, but certainly a big thank you to everyone who's made all of these things possible, including yourself, Tonch. Done a tremendous job.
One of my favourite interviews was young Angus Chapman, who ex-Rangers and North Geelong boy, who's now currently over in has returned to England with Barnsley, and that was one of our highest rated shows as well. So that was great to see. I think one of the shows with John Didalitza was exceptionally high rating. So look, we've had some great support from a lot of the clubs. It's been absolutely fantastic. We've had some John Aaron. He's another one I really need to say. He supported us last year, supported us this year by advertising on the show. Stuart Grimley as well from the Hinge Party as well, who was involved with Armstrong United. And look, a lot of the businesses as well that have supported us and sponsored us. But I mentioned John because he is a big football man. Politics aside, love him or hate him or whatever the case may be, you got to admire the bloke. And he has not just helped one club, he's helped pretty much every club in his electorate. He certainly has helped us as well. So it's been absolutely fantastic. And
also on that, Tonchi, we send our support to John, who is just a week ago, he's going through some health battles. So we do wish him all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, folks, that's it from us here on the Geelong Region Soccer Show. Hopefully we will be back next year, bigger and better. I'm sure we will. I'm really, really thankful to going back when we first started this show. We did before we even started this show last year, there was about 30, 40 donors who gave to a GoFundMe campaign. They were the reason we've got this show, and they and every single one of those people, every single one of those clubs, thank you very much. People, still become a member of this show. I know we're not going to be on the air for possibly until early next year, that any of the support that you give us, it's only a small bit of support. We're going to be able to utilize that to buy better equipment, to be able to improve the quality of our programming, our shows, and hopefully next year we'll be able to do things like live broadcasts, maybe even Saturday afternoon broadcasts from local suburban grounds, because that was the plan this year. But become a member. www.patreon.com/Geelong Region Soccer Show. We do need your support. We do need, and like I said, to those 3-4 members that we have got, look, I take my cap off to all those folks, Joe, Vladimir, Stuart. Have I missed anyone? Hopefully I haven't. Thank you very, very much to those people. But we do need your support, ladies and gentlemen. And on that note, thank you very much. And we'll see you on Wednesday night for the A-League, special A-League pre-game preview show at 6:30 p.m. Steve, is that right?
Well, the normal kickoff time for our show would be 7, but I believe Craig's pushing for a 6:45 start for some extra content with that interview with Chris Palavana, CEO of Western United. So not to be missed.
Stay tuned, but I dare say we'll probably kick off 30 minutes before kickoff. Yeah, kicking off 30 minutes before kickoff.
The real kickoff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On that note, thank you very much to everyone that's been a part of this show. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and it's time for us to say that's it, folks, from the Geelong Region Soccer Show. Good night.
Good night.